But it is essentially just a story of a couple guys who came together, got a good idea, built something, and then it started from there, basically. How do you navigate this? Like, and it feels like there's a new idea every day.
I think if you lose startups as customers, you are basically losing the innovation. Having startups as customers means like you are on the edge of what's possible.
Welcome to Ship Happens, a podcast where I sit down with some of the smartest people in the industry to talk about the skills, techniques, and mindset that helps you to ship amazing software. Today, I'm talking to Vasek Mlejnsky, founder of E2B, a company that's here to revolutionize the infrastructure used by AI agents. In 2024, E2B raised a 11.5 million seed round, and this July they announced a Series A of $21 million. Our conversation today, I would like to pick Vasek's brain on how you run an AI-focused startup, how he gets ideas, and what other aspiring founders can learn from E2B. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the show, Vasek. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right. So I want to just go straight into the basics, like to get a little background on you, because I, of course, in my research of you, I went to your LinkedIn page, and you have two experiences on your LinkedIn page. This is founder of E2B and selling Swiss chocolate in school. That's your entire professional history. Help me fill in the blanks. Like, what happened between Vasek studying in Prague to founding E2B?
Yeah, long story short, my co-founder and I have known each other a very long time, since high school. Now it's, I think, 18 years now.
Okay.
And between finishing the school or the university and E2B, we were mostly either working at some startups or like early stage companies for a few months, quickly realizing we are probably not the best employees we can be, trying to push our own agendas and maybe not being super happy. And at least me, I can say that like always thinking about starting something on my own. Thomas was my co-founder and our CTO.
Gotcha.
We almost every summer we spend like hacking some projects together. So we were both in the same school. He then went to other city. He traveled for the whole summer to my place in Prague, and we just kind of sleep on a couch, build something, and release it. And there was anything from like hobby projects, like whatever idea we had. And very quickly it just became like developer tools, because we were solving always our own problems. And as developers, like the easiest way to find a problem, and developers have a lot of problems. They complain a lot, So every time we complain, we're like, let's not only complain, so also try to fix it.
Yeah.
And we kept kind of building, iterating. There were a few more like notable projects. I can go into them if we have time, but eventually like we took a break. There was GPT 3.5 came out, and I think it was like there wasn't like function calling back then, but people were experimenting and realized, hey, like you can actually give it a tool if you prompt it right. And we just experimented with it, and we put an agent at that time, something we could maybe call an agent, into a like first version of our sandbox, and gave it like tools to write and run code. And yeah, that's how the first version of E2B came to life. But actually, for the first like 3-5 days, we thought we would be building the agent, not the infrastructure. But then we quickly pivoted to offering the infrastructure.
All right. I guess that's a good strategy, since there is a billion ways to write an agent today. Like there's a framework on every shelf, and one coming out every day. So one thing I also saw when I researched you is your Twitter profile. Is this a way you learn, or a way you share things, or like?
It was, for us, it was a way to learn what people think about it. Very early when we started building our things, like I realized that having an audience that can give you both like either positive or negative feedback, it's unfair advantage. Right? I think the worst thing is if you like really something, there's just like nothing. There's no like echo. You scream you yell into the forest and don't hear anything back, and that is just frustrating because you don't have any data points. And so what I started doing at some point with this project was like I wanted to share everything we were building and just like push the videos and the demos out, show it to people. Subreddits were great for that. Product Hunt was great for that.
Yeah. So you're building a little community around your product ideas and just trying things out. So you also like E2, we're going to dive a little bit into E2B in a moment. Like one of the things also with E2B is that it's open source. So this thing of transparency and sharing is that something that's just like very important to you, or it's more like this has just made sense for you to kind of build your company this way?
I think it depends on what kind of company you are building.
Yeah.
So for developer tools, like for a lot of them, it's very natural to be open source and very common. I think for infrastructure tools, that is even more common. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it also, especially being open source can have you can have multiple reasons to be there. And even if you want, you can self-host it, right? So we saw that as a combination of multiple of these points that I mentioned, like building a community, building trust. I also believe like infrastructural software like ours should be open source, and customers don't need to, and users don't need to ask for like using it. They just can fork it, use it,
Yeah.
change it, whatever they want to do.
Yeah. And I guess that's also like the experienced developers want today. Like they don't want to talk to a salesperson. They just want to like see it and try it, and then they can kind of make up their own mind without someone pushing a sale on them.
And what we see right now, even with big enterprises, um, big customers, it always starts from individual developer, and it makes sense, right? Like because even the CTO of a huge company or like VP of engineering, head of engineering, whoever, they are developers. They were at some point they were like you, someone who's like there probably over the weekend just hacking things together, and like no one likes to go on a sales call and just like listen to like getting the quote and everything taking weeks. I just want to use the tool. I just want to evaluate it, right? So I
Yeah.
think the playbook for modern dev tools, like it's not a top-down process where you go to execs and then you start pushing it on developers and developers are unhappy because they hate the tool. Now it's
Yeah.
like having a top-notch developer experience, having great self-serve, and like accepting the fact that your users are actually smart and they can figure out a lot of things themselves, provided you give them the information,
Yeah.
and oftentimes they can connect the dots. And
Yeah.
then only after they validate your tool, and that experience is like super, super great, um, then you can start pushing things top down. And
Yeah.
they even want that at some point, like the bigger organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's like specifically for like a space like the AI space right now with DevTools that is moving so fast and a lot of people are like catching up. They might not be ready now, but they are likely to be in 6 months because everyone is trying to catch up in this thing, right?
Yeah, um, that's true. I think like it's especially true. We see it right now.
Let's dive into the technical details. What is E2B exactly right now? Maybe it's changing into something different later.
Yeah, yeah. So the way I explain it is that E2B is a developer tool. It's an infrastructure developer tool that gives AI agents cloud computers. So imagine you have Cloud Code, you have OpenAI Codex like agents or any other agent. They're running on your MacBook, and instead of them running on your MacBook, you want to run 10,000 instances of that agent, and you want to have them run in cloud, and you want to do it fast at the same time, securely at large scale. You want to connect storages into it, make sure like no network requests leave, or about all the network requests coming in or out, and that requires this like cloud computer for each instance of the agent, and that's what basically we give you, right? With like a one line of code, you can create a something we call Sandbox, which is basically a micro VM, a small VM, and you can run your agent inside a VM. You can just have the VM almost as the Sandbox as like a sidecar, where like
Mhm.
the code with your LLM exists on our backend, and it's using tools inside the Sandbox, and basically work as literally like a computer that you have in front of you.
Okay. And the LLM just sees it as like a function. It doesn't even know it's computer, I guess.
The LLMs are now like, especially the latest ones. They know like the concept of VM that can operate in like a secure sandbox.
Yeah.
So they, for them it's like there's a bunch of options what you can do, right? So if you go like to most primitives, vanilla approach is like you have a file system tool, you have a code execution tool, you have
Yeah.
a open browser tool, right? And all of these are doing something inside the sandbox through our SDK.
Okay.
The other option is you can take Cloud Code, which is a CLI. You can put it in the sandbox and just interact with it, remotely because it's somewhere running on our servers or deployed inside our VPC. And you do 10,000 of these instances at the same time. And then you don't need to worry that much about the tools because that's already part of a Cloud Code, and you just say, hey, it's using just file system the same way it would be using file system on like a Linux laptop.
Yeah. Okay. So the initial selling point is isolation and security, but like down the line, when people's use maybe get a little bit more advanced, is this thing also being able to spin up like a thousand agents and do a lot of like work in parallel?
It's a combination of things, right? So I would say security and well, at the bottom of any infrastructure tool, I think it's reliability. If you are not reliable, whatever you are building, any fancy feature, it's useless because like how I'm gonna use it if it's if you have a downtime 2 days out of the week, or 2 hours, then it start like as you go higher in like this pyramid, if you can imagine, it becomes more and more abstract. So the next above it for us is gonna be security and isolation. And this pyramid looks a little bit different for different type of a customer. It's gonna be different for a startup that's growing fast. It's gonna be different for like an enterprise company that's looking for stability, isolation, security, a lot of observability and transparency. And
Gotcha.
there's a big part of everything is also DX, like making it super easy to run a lot of these instances, manage them, know what's happening in them, get notifications, like a callbacks when the instance dies, why it died, what was happening there. And the next step, like the part two of this whole sandbox story, is like building products around the sandbox,
Okay.
where it gets like really interesting. So this is like the next
Okay.
step of above the compute.
Okay. So that's more like specialized things. Is that where you? Yeah, what are you going to provide? And maybe you can't really talk
Yeah.
about that yet.
Yeah, totally. So I would say like one of the first things is persistence and storage. Right? So when you start a sandbox, the agent does the work there, and you kill the sandbox. You basically lose all the state. So how do you make sure that everything stays in like when you kind of shut down the sandbox, you can resume it again like 7 days later. Like imagine the same way you open your laptop the next day, everything is
Yeah.
there as it was. So that it means everything both in file system but also in memory.
Yeah.
So and how do you and like this is relatively easy to do with one sandbox, one VM, but very hard to do when you are running, 5 millions of these per day, hundreds of millions per month, and like at scale essentially.
Yeah.
And to make sure unit economics works, everything is fast.
Got it.
So that's one of the first things I would say. Another thing is, for example, secure secrets. So you need a way how to expose, for example, API keys inside the sandbox to the agent, to the LLM, without actually exposing the real value of those API keys. So kind of need to swap them in flight. Another thing is storage. So basically the goal where I think this is going is like you have this infinitely scalable computer in a cloud for each agent, and it kind of morphs into the form what the agent needs at the same at the right time. So as the agent is pulling bigger repositories, is running more complex workloads, the sandbox should kind of on its own like increases storage. Like imagine it's like backed by something like S3 bucket, and you can just keep uploading stuff as you go, and you don't worry about it like if it's full, if it's not full, and you pay as you go as you are using it. Or it should like increase the RAM, increase the CPU, or decrease the CPU, because like you want basically these workloads to be very optimized on what the agent is doing, and you don't want to overutilize, or you don't want to like overkill the spec of the sandbox and just have like 32 CPU just sitting there while the agent is basically running a simple Python server, and that's all.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a lot of these things is like you imagine you have like a piece of infrastructure that can form into the right shapes very dynamically based on what the AI wants to do, what the agent wants to do. This is where we are going with E2B and our sandboxes.
Cool. Like it's interesting to see how these like cloud primitives we've seen over the last 10, 20 years, and now they're morphing into this like new use case. And it's interesting how the scaling challenges become different in how we want to do this. Like we've looked at Kubernetes and like all these things over the last 20 years of like really how do we handle scale? But I guess this is like an entirely new case where the patterns look significantly different compared to how you would normally do it.
I would say for a lot of the cases, the patterns are almost orthogonal to what we have right now. So if you think about it, what we have right now in a lot of infrastructure is there's like a very clear step where you build the code, you deploy the code, where you can optimize everything, right? And it's not bound by time. It's like bound by time that you don't want to wait hours to get deployed. You probably want to have it in lower minutes, but it's not like you need to have it in like 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds. No. But that's what you actually need with the sandboxes, right? So we need a sandbox to start right now like in 250 milliseconds, and over the time we are pushing it lower. And we don't know what kind of workload it's going to run. We don't know what kind of code or what kind of files will get uploaded there.
Yeah. Cool. I was about to say that's the entire business model of AWS.
yeah. I mean, what we say, like when people ask us, like, what's the big vision you are building? We say, like, we are building new AWS. We are building AWS for AI agents. It's just like and even users, not only us, even users have no idea what how these workloads are going to look like.
So I think also some of the listeners is probably also thinking about how do you really get like an AI startup going, and like how do you get funding, how do you get people to believe this idea, like, and so I guess at some point you had like the confidence to ask VCs for money here, but like how did you know this is the idea? It's just like,
I don't think there was like a one point where I was like, yeah, now we should, like, this is it, right? So I heard this advice, I don't know where and when. Well, like the best time to start fundraising if someone starts offering you money. Actually, like wants to send you money. By the way, I think the fundraising is different. The process is different when you're at pre-seed stage, seed stage. Series A is very different usually. So now, what I'm talking about, like let's say the very early stage of like seed, pre-seed. And that's what actually happened with us. Like we launched, I think I posted a video of like a demo of how an agent was using tools, and it was like a GPT 3.5 based agent. Greg Brockman retweeted it on Twitter, and it kind of started snowballing. It was already open source, and then out of nowhere, like we started having investors reaching out. And one of the investors were like, "Hey, like, are you fundraising? Like, I want to send you 100K." And I was like, "I guess we are fundraising." Like we had in mind, Thomas and I, like the whole time we knew like we had like this hypothesis behind like why this can be big. So it wasn't like we are fundraising just because someone is giving us money, but it was like the timing felt right because like someone was there actually sending us money.
Okay, because I was wondering like when I looked at the story and so on. So, but it is essentially just a story of a couple guys who came together, got a good idea, built something, and then some person on Twitter saw it, and then it started from there basically.
Yeah. It's just like leaves out the part where we were like 6 to 8 years like building project that didn't lead anywhere. But
That's
basically,
always the thing you leave out, right?
overnight success, basically.
Yeah, the 8 year overnight success,
Yeah,
as it
yeah,
always
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So, but I think it's interesting in the sense that I guess at that time you were also in the Czech Republic. Like
Yeah.
you weren't like a Silicon Valley in crowd networking with folks on Sand Hill Road, and like you weren't doing all these things. You were just like picked up on the internet basically because your idea
Yeah,
was so good that people shared it.
exactly, because we were sharing these things online and from previous projects that even though they didn't lead anywhere in terms of like financial success,
Hmm.
they were interesting enough for people, to get to people, and like you don't need any permission to reach out to people, right? You can literally
Yeah.
just like that's Twitter or X is great for that. You are building cool stuff, like cool people will follow you because they find it interesting, and that's what they are looking for. And that's how we got to the first set of our angels, some first early investors, and at that time, and I think it's definitely still true now, even more than before. We had bigger network in San Francisco without actually being in San Francisco, thanks to Twitter, thanks to X,
Yeah.
because we are posting things online, and like there, then compared to Czech Republic and Prague.
Yeah. So did you always know that you wanted to go to the US to do this, or like was it just like what accidentally happened? And I guess also like the European VC market is not like comparable to like what's
Yeah.
happening.
Thomas and I actually got to San Francisco for the first time around end of 21 with a different project.
Okay.
And we were part of this online accelerator called Pioneer, started by Daniel Gross. We got here for like a month. It was end of pandemic, so the city was pretty much dead.
Hmm.
But it was like a sort of like small dream coming true because we spent a week, thanks to the accelerator, of like visiting like CEO of Twitch, CEO of Stripe, CEO of Airtable, and like just hearing all these stories about how they build their company and just meeting these people, kinda, and being in the community where it changes how you think about things, right? So now you are not thinking about how do I send out 100 emails a month. How do I send out 100,000 emails a month? How do I get
Yeah.
like not $1,000 MRR, but how do I get like $100,000 MRR? It shifts about how you think about things, and also helps you to realize all the people that started these super successful companies. They're just people. They were
Yeah.
at the same point you were, and it seems like it feels hard to believe because they are so much in front of you, and of course they are smart, but like there's no reason, if you are probably like reasonably smart, and I think especially like if you can survive long enough and like withhold the pain, why you shouldn't eventually be able to do it as well.
Yeah.
And so when we started E2B, we always had this idea of like we probably want to get to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley. We weren't sure first, like maybe the company will be based in Prague and we will be like traveling like founders. But when we started the first year, we two co-founders, then we were four people, had first two employees, and we were four people for like a year and a half, so pretty long time. Um, we went to San Francisco a couple of times, and every time we were here, everything moves faster, and like all
Hmm.
of our customers are here and were back in the time as well. So it made a lot of sense, um, you know, um, for us to be here, and just for the company to be more successful. And it's like another one of those unfair advantages that you can have. Of course, you can build a
Yeah.
big successful company from Prague. It's just like, will you have it easier or harder? And like, do you want to make
Yeah.
it like harder if it's gonna be hard enough anyway?
So one of the things it seems like that was like critical to how you got to where you are now is the openness and transparency, and you also have a certain belief in dev tools and being in the open source space and so on. Did you ever have this like nagging feeling of like, no, I should not share this. This is like my idea, and someone could steal it?
No, I think, especially in our space,
Hmm.
I always felt like, well, more likely you will die because um, of your own mistakes than someone
Hmm.
stealing your idea. Like no one cares, right? Like no one knows you, no one cares, and it's actually an advantage. You can try many different things. You don't have like big user base that you need to serve, so you can iterate
Hmm.
very very quickly. You can pivot to whatever you want, and you can just like put things out there. But we've got a lot of, during fundraising, especially in the early days, we had a lot of questions about like, what if they fork you and copy you? And I was like, yeah, if they think this is worth their time, we are probably already a pretty successful business, doing like 100 million ARR, and that means we did something right, and then I will worry about it then, or like have a
Yeah.
idea close to like what to do about it like close to then. So I think it's a little silly thing to worry about.
All right. So I wanted to talk a little about like the AI space, and now you're in San Francisco, so I'm guessing you're feeling the full force of like you could say, like some call it an AI bubble now, the AI boom. So I think like in being a startup in the AI space, like how do you navigate this? Like, and it feels like there's a new idea every day. Like everyone's hyped about something, and then all of a sudden it's not the thing.
The space is moving fast, and you want to keep tabs on a lot of things, but not necessarily like act on a lot of
Mm.
things, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes like the right decision is just like wait, don't do anything, because like it's gonna be different in 3 months, or like this won't be relevant in 3 months. I think great indicator in like especially developer tools is when after, for example, some announcement or some like a new type of a approach, you see like the community of other developers building around it, like
Mm.
forming around it and building things with this approach or with this product tool or whatever it is. And that's like a really good sign that like there's like first signs of a community. Like you have, if it's an open source tool, like you start having seeing issues on the repository.
Yeah.
It's in that, for example, by the way, this is I think like issues are open issues is much better indicator than any stars, because issues means that people are using it and running into
Yeah.
problems. Right?
Yeah.
Stars is like I can click on a button. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything. And so and just like obvious like posting about it and posting about like showing demos is one part of it, but I will just repeat what everyone is saying. Like there's a difference between like a cool demo and full product, but I do think that the delta between these two was like almost
Mm.
enormous starting beginning of 24, but
Yeah.
now the delta is so much smaller. And like when you have a cool demo on Twitter, I definitely noticed less like a overhyped demos on Twitter
Yeah.
where someone is promising something that like actually you tried and doesn't work at all. And now either people are more careful, like telling you, like kind of walking the line of like, yes, it works, it's great, but for these type of use cases, for other types, like yeah, we have work to do. Or they actually they say like, yeah, it works, and you try it, and like 8 out of 10 cases or 7 out of 10
Yeah.
cases it works, depending of course like what type of tool it is. um, 7 out of 10 might be good or terrible, right? So really depends on what you are building. But generally I think like seeing the demos now and people like posting about these things is
Yeah.
actually a good indicator. It's much better indicator than it was like a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah. So the space is maturing. People are getting a little bit more realistic sense about what you can do with this technology, and maybe there's even less hype. Maybe there's more people in it, but the hype is maybe a little bit lower now.
I
Actually.
think I definitely think there's still a lot of excitement,
Yeah.
at least in the like an investor community. Also, it's
Mm.
always funny, you know. So we have this advantage of like we are we have one office in San Francisco. We have another office in Prague,
Okay.
and it's always great to kind of step out from the Silicon Valley bubble.
Get out of your bubble. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you see, for example, when I go to Europe, and we have a few customers there, or just meet a few companies there. Like what type of problems they are solving, and what type of problems the startup that's like on the edge of what's possible is solving in SF. Very different. Like there's like a difference of 1 to 2 years, right? So enterprise customers are like integrating code interpreter, while startups in San Francisco are doing forking of agent instances and like parallelizing multiple agents. So very different style of thinking and where their mind space is.
Yeah. But I guess it's also healthy from like a, you could say, go-to-market perspective, that you actually know what you can say. Like SF is like an edge case. Like it's a very specific kind of market, and it's also like comparably small to, you could say, Europe or the rest of the world. So actually knowing what, like, more like, you can say, normal companies are doing with this technology is probably also good.
Both are important, right? So the startups here actually show you what might be possible, and what like the more like normal, regular, common companies will be doing in the next 6 to 12, 18 months.
Yeah.
And they help you to push and build your product to be state of the art. And they move very fast. So you also need to like move very fast. And but then if you are making the right decisions and building the product the right way, you will, when the enterprise customer comes to you for the same feature the startup was asking you a year ago, or the type of a product, you will be ready, and like this can scale to reasonable levels. And oftentimes the big enterprises, they get inspired by those startups.
Yeah.
They see how they are pushing state of the art. They think, okay, we want to build something like this on our platform. What the startups are using in their tech stack. So I think it's super important. Like I think if you lose startups as customers, like you are basically losing the innovation. Having startups as customers means like you are on the edge of what's possible, and you keep up with the market.
Yeah, you have to be relevant in the space, and I think if you're not relevant with startups, you won't be with enterprises later. They're looking at that space for experience. That's totally correct. So, so specifically, now you're a dev tools company, infrastructure company for developers. So your opinion, like you're saying, again, this is the extreme opinions in this space of like either AI is replacing us all, or it's like a co-pilot is going to make us all better. But like if you look at the SDLC, like how developers build software, we've had 2 decades of everything is cloud native, Kubernetes, containers, cloud, and so on, and people have adjusted to that. That's kind of, if you look at any like bigger kind of organizations, that's kind of like how they build software. But with agents and all these new things coming out, how do you see the SDLC, like the life cycle of software changing?
Yeah, I mean, $1 trillion question, right? So,
if you know, it's like.
This one idea I won't tell you. No, I'm joking. I think like one thing to keep in mind is that while the space is moving super fast, to actually transfer these businesses, like especially the large ones, takes a lot of time. Like just look at the cloud, and I think if you look at the like latest numbers of how many large organizations have transferred into cloud, it's double digits percentage, but I think I don't want to come up with a random number, but I think it was like fairly low number, right? Like I was surprised seeing it that like there's still a very large percentage of businesses that haven't transferred to a full cloud. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. And in the current AI, I think it's a little dangerous to have any predictions for anything like more than 8 months. You can like trying to be too specific, you will just build the wrong thing. So it's just like it's good to think about these as primitives, like from the first principle. Like LLMs are getting more capable; they are capable of understanding more code. at the same time, the inference, infrastructure layer of different tools are becoming more complex and ready for these LLMs. So I think kinda the space is catching up. Like the tools like we are building, like are allowing the LLMs to use their full potential and agents. And I honestly try to stay away from prediction. Like we will just be calling an agent through interface, like chat interface, in the next 6 months, or we will, just be coding from our phone, or maybe there will always be like human, or we won't be coding, right? Or there will be like always human in the loop, and it won't get better. I do not think it won't get better, like the models. At the same time, I'm not like a researcher, but I think what's important is to look at the primitives, look at what your customers are doing, users are doing, and listen to them, and then have a like gut feeling where this can go. That should be like 20% of your roadmap, and leave something for the experimentation. Because like some of those experiments like can be the winners, and actually can show you where the space, or can be the right bets where the space can go. So I think it should be like 80-20. Like 80% you follow your customers, because together you are discovering this whole new blue ocean world, and 20% is like you have your own bets because you've seen so many customers and so many use cases. You think about it 24/7. That maybe like you probably have you should have a good ideas about like where the space can go, and you want to try and experiment with things, and that's where you should like 20% of your roadmap you should dedicate to that. That's how we are thinking at a team.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess also like if you, and as you say, like being ultra specific, you might overlook interesting things that people might be using your primitives for, and like, oh, that's actually, I didn't think about that. That actually expands like the use case to, you could say, CI/CD or testing or doing something against production or whatever you like down the line that some other person might think of by just having the primitives, right? So
yeah. And these ideas can come up with like very small things. We are just talking to a customer, they say one or two words, and then kind of all clicks together because you had other 100 conversations, and now you have a full map in your mind. But I think like great things, like you don't build the great thing right away, and you are just right. You build a small version, you iterate very closely with a few customers, with a few users. You see like early inklings of like this is going in the right direction, and you keep building on top of that. So I think it's just like being very close to how people think about things, like what and are they using it. This is just a strong indicator of, and those are just like basic startup advice that you can find anywhere.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what people are going to use the storage and the memory and like the different things you're going to do, like the scale that you're allowing them to do. That's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And and let's just like bet on LLMs are getting better, right? That's what we built this company on. It's like the more LLMs are getting better, we are getting better. We are more important and needed, and we are getting better and more used. And if you figure out this flywheel, then I think you are on the right direction.
So the models keep getting better. Do you think, like, again, this is like asking you to look into the future more than 6 months, but like we have the big foundational models now, like OpenAI and Anthropic and so on, but we also have like this undercurrent of a lot of like open source models and like small language models that is really, like, they haven't really caught on. Like, it doesn't seem like it's something that a lot of people are adopting, but they do exist and they get better and better as well. Like, it's more like, where do you see this going? Like, do you see maybe these foundation models is not so important in the future?
I definitely think like especially in the last couple of weeks, the open source models have shown that they are going to be extremely important. Like the new model from Cursor, from Winter for Cognition, like they are both built on top of open source Chinese models. And I think you shouldn't bet against open source, right? So and like constraints. Having constraints in the world like force you to be more creative and get better. So and that's kind of I think what happened with the open source models. Like you don't have the funding, you don't have all the GPUs you would need. You don't have like a big company usually company at the scale of OpenAI or Anthropic push behind it. And so you need to figure out what are your unfair advantages that you can actually find an attack vector on the space. And that's why I think like the open source models will be super, super interesting because they are kind of being born from the necessity and from like struggle, right? And that means they are figuring out something that if they figure it out, let's say like you can be more effective on like less powerful GPUs or like more effective per 1 kilowatt. And that's like if you figure this out and actually it works, like that's going to be a huge unfair advantage compared to any AI lab.
Yeah, and it's going to push the other labs as well to figure that one out as well, right? So
yeah, and it makes total sense that the open source models are lacking a bit. Like if you need such a huge capital investment, but I would say like. I think like being open source model is like it's like open source software. Like you want to get everywhere. You want to have your model to be distributed everywhere and everything built on top of that. That's a win. Not having everything closed and guarding it. I do think that's more dangerous and that's also less like you. It will be harder for your users. It supports the innovation and it supports the innovation less and like the experimentation of other developers. And not necessarily revenue. I think that's a different question. But in terms of like innovation, that I think is easier if you have open source stuff.
So this was a super interesting conversation, Vasek. So thank you so much for being here. I really look forward to seeing what's going to happen with E2B and all your interesting things in the future. So is there any last things you want to like either recommend, anything you're specifically excited about for the future, new releases, plans, and so on?
So I definitely recommend checking our careers page because we are hiring a lot of people. So go to e2b.dev/careers. We are hiring both in San Francisco and Prague in our offices. The sandboxes are taking off. It's like very clear. This is one of the piece and core pieces of the infrastructure for agents. So the growth we have seen so far is, I think, only like the fraction of what we are going to see, especially this year and next year. So now it's like I'm biased, but now is like the best time to join the company.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your openness and your transparency and sharing all these things, what's going on with the E2B and with you. So that is a wrap for today. And again, thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to follow Vasek's work, you should definitely check out his Twitter profile, check out E2B website. Do you have a GitHub profile as well that people should check out? Yeah.
It's github.com/E2B-dev.
Cool. We'll put all the stuff in the show notes. And as always, this show is brought to you by Docker, the open platform for building, shipping, and running apps. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Ship Happens, brought to you by Docker, the platform trusted by millions of developers to build, share, and run applications anywhere. With Docker, teams ship faster, stay secure, and collaborate without friction, from code to cloud. Because when you build with Docker, ship happens. Ready to make shipping simple? Start your next project at docker.com, and that's docker.com.